so I appreciate everybody participating today. Sharon is going to present her recommended alternative that is what's come to me and to our office. And after we complete receiving comments today, in addition to everything we've been receiving to date, I'll be forwarding on a recommendation to accompany her recommendation to the City Council for their consideration. In terms of where we've been with this, there are people I know here, I see here, who have been involved with this park from the time it was conceived. And I'm not going to go back to that point in time. I'm just going to talk about the process that we've been going through as a city. There has been, as many of you know, I see in looking around that many of you who are here are people who have been participating. There's been an extensive public process to date. There have been 15, or really more than 15, facilitated public meetings for the public and for various stakeholder groups. The city has been committed to this property as open space, and we know that goes back to the origination of Parley's Historic Nature Park and its foundation and the basis for the grant to the city. We have also been committed to retaining the off-leash operation in this park. So that, just for clarification, Sharon will be going into this with some more detail. The consultant's recommended alternative would provide for over 22 acres of ground, over 10 acres of ground. And I might also point out, in terms of context for Salt Lake City, one of the very frequent comments that I see, and the many, many comments coming forward, is there aren't other off-leash areas. There certainly aren't enough off-leash areas. There is no question that that's the case. But to put this in context, we currently in the city have over 22 off-leash acres in 9 off-leash areas around the city. We've had 2 additional areas that have been added and are being added just in the last several months. And that far exceeds anything else anywhere in the county with other municipalities in the county. In fact, what we offer is substantially more than all of the other communities in the valley combined. Now, does that mean there's enough? No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But it does give you a sense, at least in terms of context, of the way Salt Lake City has been approaching the off-leash issues. Sharon is going to go through for you and review her recommendation, but I just want to put this in context from my perspective. We have a magnificent spot here. One, as I said, that from my vantage point is unparalleled for almost any urban area in the country. We also have an area that is intensely used and loved, and that has a significantly deteriorated environmental condition. And that part of what we need to do as the stewards today and looking forward is to look at how we manage this park to restore some of the environmental damage that has occurred and to protect historic and cultural resources that are treasures and that have been undergoing degradation with the increased use in the past number of years, and to provide for a mix of users for this area. And it is of intense interest to a whole variety of users who come down and enjoy this area. That's the balancing act that is reflected in developing a plan and will be reflected regardless of the outcome of this plan going forward, is to look at protecting the existing resources, providing for users and the mix of users, and looking out for the future. So with that, let me turn, I think this follows the right order. Julie, you can tell me if I'm wrong. But turn the time over to Sharon, who's going to describe the alternatives or make sure we're operating from a common set of information. And then I look forward to hearing your comments and the comments from the other people who will be speaking. Appreciate all of you being here today.
I want to thank all of you for being here as well. I love my job because I get to come out to beautiful places and talk to passionate people about things that are important to our community. And in no other project I've ever worked on have I had so many people so passionately interested in the outcome. And it's really a testament not only to how important this is for recreation use, but also how important this is as an open space to people, and how much people in this community value the sense of community that public places and open spaces give them. This is one of the city's original open spaces. It's one of the biggest and most important open spaces the city has. So this plan all along has been to us sort of a testing ground and a proving ground for what open space could accomplish in the city and what off-leash dog users could accomplish in the city. We came into a project that had a 25-year history of people using it, but not a lot of people managing it. So we went back and looked very thoroughly through the existing policies, the existing park rules, the recent policy changes, including the off-leash dog ordinances and the off-leash dog rules that were applied to the park a couple years ago. And we looked at what were the common themes through all of this that people have agreed on many times before in the past. And from that, we developed a plan that we felt balanced all of the people who enjoy this park and all of the things that this open space demands from people to take care of it. So if you haven't yet received or had one of these passed around to you, there are more of them circulating. We can try circulating them again. The information on this is identical to what's up here on these two boards. In addition, we printed out a board that has the top 10 questions about dogs in the park. If you want to get those answers specifically again, it's over on my left. And there is also a map somewhere in the back over there if you can't see this one. So I'm going to point to the map as I go through these recommendations. The plan we have so far is much more thorough than this. There's an extensive baseline conditions report where we did scientific research onto what the conditions were in the park, with wildlife, with vegetation, with wetlands, with water quality, with recreation, with access and trailheads and parking, with the recreation experience and so on. And then we started putting together alternatives, and actually in the back somewhere is a board that has 8 different alternatives shown. We did a whole range of alternatives, and then we started to compare them and see which ones met the whole range of park goals that we had outlined early on in the process. On the back sheet, the back side of your sheet that has this table, the 7 goals on the far left side are the goals that we took from early on in the process and said, how can we best meet these goals? And then we developed management strategies from them, how to specifically take specific actions to do that. And from that, we were able to go back to the maps and say, which map is best able to meet all of those management strategies. There is a future step that's going to happen here where we actually start talking about costs of the plan and what projects are going to be priority projects. The city does have limited funds, as we all know, but there are lots of opportunities for grants out there right now related to water quality, environmental protection, restoring native habitats, restoring streams and things that protect our water quality. And our open space program here has actually applied for some of those specifically for this park already. They knew that the riparian corridor would be a concern and started to be proactive about that. So while many people have asked us, how are you going to accomplish this plan? It's already sort of underway. We're trying to find ways now to accomplish this plan. And one of the key things is also community stewardship, which is why we're so happy to have all of you here today, because you are the people who we know will carry out this plan and who we will rely on carrying out this plan. So one of the questions on the top 10 questions is, what can I do to make sure that this park stays the way it is, that we all want it to be? And one of them is to take individual personal responsibility for upholding the park rules and helping other people understand what the rules are, and just leaving this place a better place than how you found it. So at this point, our management plan is really focused on how to leave it a better place than it currently is. We've had a number of years of just general heavy use down here, and a number of years of environmental conditions slowly declining. That concerns us because we have only to expect more and more people to come down here, and we really don't want to limit use numbers. We want to let as many people come down here as they want to. We believe that's possible with responsible recreation behavior. If people do follow the rules and follow this management plan, we think we can continue to accommodate all the uses that are here today in the ways that people want to recreate down here. So I'm going to only touch on the top 10 points here. And then as we go out into tours of the park, you can learn a little bit more about the specifics of this or specific areas of the park and what we're concerned with. So item number 1 was one of the biggest requests, that is to remove the off-leash restriction from the main entry trail right here. Currently it's on-leash. The agreement was as soon as Parley's trail was constructed, or an alternative to this was constructed, that the alternative could be on-leash and the other one, and the current one could be off-leash. So that is our recommendation. Second, create an off-leash water play area. We'd like to have water play area somewhere down here near the bridge or in this area, as well as the one that currently exists at the top of the park by the culvert where the water flows in from the creek. We have a little bit of a problem here that it is not owned by the city. It is UDOT property, and we have to get water rates and things like that, so we need to explore how we actually make that happen. So that's sort of a long-term project, but you do currently have the access here that will stay as it is. So number 3 is negotiating the purchase of this property, or a memorandum of understanding to use the property. Number 4 is the BMX area, which, as many of you know, if you go down this trail, shortly down that way is a bike jump area, and many parts of that bike jump area are very close to the creek and in fact on the edge of the creek banks. So we would like to continue to allow people BMX there, but we would like to move that back from the creek. 50 feet is the recommendation because that is the current standard in the city's riparian corridor ordinance, just to shift the park and to restore the areas that are too close to the creek. Honestly, they're also in danger of falling into the creek at some point, and that's a hazard as well. Number 5 is relocating trails outside of Parley's Creek corridor and restoring the vegetation and habitat within that corridor. One of the biggest questions people had for us as we started this plan was, is this really truly high-quality habitat? And the answer we discovered was yes. The city has a number of open spaces on the foothills and along the Jordan River, but it doesn't have very many things that are here in the interface between it. This creek that has a north-facing slope, a south-facing slope, wetlands, springs, a creek, a nice big tall tree canopy over the creek is actually very good quality habitat for birds and for fish coming down the stream from Parley's Canyon, including endangered Bonneville cutthroat trout. So those are 2 things that don't live on land or interact with dogs so much, but they do rely on a healthy ecosystem upland from them. We need to make sure that the water that flows into the creek is not damaged with erosion and sediment or with dog waste that's running down to the creek. Our concern is not so much dogs in the creek as much as what happens when erosion comes down from the uplands. We're also concerned about migratory birds using this corridor to get to and from the hemispheres, honestly, as they come through this way to get to the Great Salt Lake. It's actually a continuous corridor in those ways. Now, the upland areas and the little animals that you often see other places, we don't have a lot of rabbits, fox, things like that. Honestly, they've been displaced by dogs. There are some concerns about, some people might be concerned with that. That is not our primary concern. We really are focused on the riparian corridor. So that makes that recommendation to restore the riparian corridor our number 1 recommendation. In order to do that, we have to take a tough step and move the creek, the trails that are adjacent to the creek away from the creek. That is the best management practice for protecting riparian corridors is to have a vegetation buffer so that all that water coming downhill is stopped and slowed down and has a chance to absorb the toxins and absorb the sediment and so on before it goes into the creek. So that is why we're proposing separate access points for people to go in the water with themselves or with their dogs, and then areas along the creek that do not have access points, then in fact the trail is restored into native vegetation. Number 6, restore user-created trails and culverts. There are, as you know, a lot of little spots where people and animals have climbed up and erosion keeps coming down despite our best efforts at revegetation. There are spots like that that are also at the bottom of the culverts that come off the highway where there's polluted water coming off the highway. Those are very important areas for us to restore. That is one of the reasons we are proposing a stay-on-trail ethic. This is a very common leave-no-trace ethic in other open spaces. Just stay on the trail. That avoids things like that being created. It also avoids areas like this turning into weed patches as the vegetation gets cut down. In order to compensate for that, we're actually designating a few off-leash play areas, just upland play areas for dogs. And there are a couple of those shown on the map. Number 7 is protect the wetland and historical area by limiting access and restoring features. As you well know, that Parley's Trail is coming in here along this north slope, And it has a big swath that has cut through the park. We're well aware of that, and we wish we could have done a different alignment, but this was the one we had to choose from. So as that has gone in, that trail, by decision of the county, is an on-leash trail. It has bicyclists, it has walkers, wheelchairs can use it even though it's not the right grades to be ADA accessible. But that trail we need to maintain on-leash trail. So one of the decisions with that area where the trail cuts past the cellar and past the aqueduct is how do we deal with that conflict? Well, because we also had the situation of trying to protect wetlands there and trying to protect the historic sites, it was decided that that trail that goes through that area would be an on-leash trail. Number 8 is protect a nature preserve area on the south side of Parleys Creek by limiting access. This proposal shows a preserve trail, as we're calling it, which is a no-dog trail on this south side of the stream. The purpose for that is because there are springs in wet areas. There are a lot of muddy areas that with wintertime use get worse and worse every year. And there's also the more sensitive parts of this open space are over there. So that gives an opportunity over there not only for wildlife to have a little more nesting and living space, but also for people who want to come to the park to enjoy that kind of experience to have a place to do that. Number 9, it shows an off-leash dog area in the current fenced area. You probably know that area is a restoration area from construction of the trail on the highway. It's conveniently already fenced. We can continue to use it that way. The fence does not have to be there. It's there already, so we used it. And that is just one of a couple possible locations that we could have an off-leash area. We're looking for places that are relatively flat and don't have erosion problems to put something like that. And finally, number 10 is eliminating shooting the tube. I know this has been a fun activity for many years, but it is dangerous. It is a liability. It has impacts on the creek. There's garbage and other dangerous things floating through the creek as that happens, and the city has decided, the city staff has decided this just isn't the kind of thing we can do in a park that's managed with this many people. It's also a hazard to the people in those recreating in the pool below. So I'll conclude with that and encourage you to take a look around and to take a look around and open your eyes to what we're talking about here, because it's something that we who do these kind of plans regularly see, because we go around to places like this, but we hope this is a learning experience for you to see what the potential is, and for you to take this opportunity as someone who recreates in this park to use this as a model to be able to have other open spaces like this around the county and around the valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Becker, and thank you, Sharon. The next part of tonight's meeting is a chance for the stakeholder groups. There's a representative that's been identified for each of those to come and speak for up to 2 minutes, commenting or responding to the proposed use and management plan. Those people are Kate Bradshaw on behalf of Fidos, and just in case anyone out there doesn't know, it's Friends Interested in Dogs in Open Space. Wayne Martinson, are you here? Great. From the Nature Preservation and Audubon Society. Melissa Stamp. Haven't identified these people before. From Streams Conditions, Walt Gilmore. Okay. From Parley's Trail and on behalf of Salt Lake County, Sean Carter, mountain bike jumpers, and Cameron Wood for the BMX bikers. Now, while they're making their presentations, there are 3 people from the city staff, Lisa, Carly, and Sean. Could you raise your hands?
There's one in the back here.
Okay, they'll be passing out index cards or comment forms and pencils. Raise your hand if you would like one of those, and you can put your comment on that. Then also return it to the same people. They'll bring your comments or questions up here, and I'll read them, and someone from the mayor's staff or the mayor himself will be able to answer those questions for you. If you don't want your question or your comment read and you just want it on the paper, please write "do not read" at the top of your form.
2 minutes is not enough time to represent the different groups.
Okay, there was a comment that 2 minutes isn't enough time. We're going to do our best with the time that we have, and following their comments, we're going to do these other questions. So please, if you have something specific you want to ask, raise your hand for one of those questions. Put 10 stars on top of it. Every form will come with 10 stars. Are you here from the ADA? would you like to speak for 2 minutes? I've read the plan, and what it says is they can't make this ADA accessible because it's too steep. Let's have that be a question that's answered at the end, okay? We'll have that be the first question. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. Let's start with Kate.
All right, Kate.
Mr. Mayor, we want to thank you for visiting Parley's Historic Nature Park today. I'll get closer. Mr. Mayor, we want to thank you for visiting Parley's Historic Nature Park today to hear our concerns about the management plan recommended by the city's consultant. We sought an audience with you earlier to address our concerns and are pleased to finally have the opportunity to speak with you. As you know, Friends Interested in Dogs in Open Space, or FIDOs as we are more commonly known, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to securing off-leash areas for dogs and their owners in the Salt Lake Valley. As dog owners, we subscribe to a simple philosophy that says, "To that which you tame, you owe your life." From this simple philosophy flows our dedication to ensuring that our dogs have adequate legal space in which to do the things they do best: run, sniff, wrestle, and explore. This park is unique and special to the FIDOS community. It is the best off-leash space in the entire city. The loops of trails, access to the stream, and variety of terrain make this place very special to our dogs and to us. It was through no small effort on the part of FIDOS volunteers that this park came to be as you see it today, largely free of the discarded junk and invasive weeds that had accumulated here for decades. That is not to say that this park is perfect in its current state. Despite our efforts, there is still much that needs to be done in order for this park to truly flourish and shine as the gem it is. It is because of our commitment to both dogs and open space that FIDOS was completely and totally willing to embrace the stewardship agreement the city required in order for this place to become a legal off-leash area. Countless hours have been donated by FIDOS volunteers in thistle mitigation, blocking of social trails, junk hauling, poop pickup, or poop tarba, as we like to call it, and in dog owner education. After such an investment in this park, and in our commitment to the dogs we have tamed, it can be no wonder that we look upon the recommendations by the city's consultant with complete and utter dismay. An area that once contained 88 acres of multi-use space has been segregated and unnaturally divided. As the largest park user group, we are now to be restricted to less than 10 acres of the park in 2 fenced dog areas. How can it possibly make any sense to restrict a large and growing and tax-paying user group such a small area of the park? Moreover, the City Council in the July 2007 motion that created this park recognized the need for additional off-leash space within the city. This management plan not only reduces off-leash space but does not identify where the displaced dog community will be relocated. We would suggest that FIDOS has shown a commitment to this park far beyond that of any other user group and has proven that we can and do take the stewardship of this area very seriously. Additionally, we have grave concerns about the proposed lower off-leash area near the substation. This area is intended to serve as a flood control basin in addition to off-leash space. It is widely known by the dog community that during times of high runoff, it is not safe to allow your dogs near the lower culvert, as some number of dogs have been trapped against the grate. No responsible dog owner would allow his or her dog in that area in the spring. There is also concern that this area will be a permanent mud pit, unsuitable for dogs or people, when the area is called to its double duty as the flood control basin. The upper fenced dog area is in a place that lacks any shade, and questions about access to the creek by people and dogs are constantly changing in our communications with the city's consultant. During the hot summer months, the most desirable locations within the park are near the creek with the shade of the trees. It is unclear from the consultant's recommendation whether any improvements like shade shacks or water drinking fountains will be added to the upper area. Surely the city is not intending to drive dog owners from the park through a policy of heat stroke. Of utmost concern is the designation of the southern half of the park as a protection and preserve area. No dogs would be allowed on the southern side of the park, whether on or off leash. While the name of this park, Parley's Historic Nature Park, indicates it is wild and unimproved, this park never has been and was never intended to be a nature preserve. FIDOS has submitted documentation to the city and to the city's consultant demonstrating that claims to the contrary are false. The land in this park was accumulated over a lengthy period that involved several land swaps and purchases with the Utah Department of Transportation, private landowners and the city. There are acres upon acres of land set aside as watershed or as preserves within the city and Salt Lake County, and we feel this is more than sufficient space for that purpose. Finally, the consultant's plans envisions construction of new trails, relocation of the BMX park, fencing dog areas, enhanced park enforcement, and other projects costing many thousands of dollars that frankly seem unattainable given the current fiscal environment and completely irresponsible in light of the $20 million budget shortfall recently announced by the city. There is also much more we could tell you, Mr. Mayor, but we have been asked to keep our comments brief. We urge you to seriously reconsider the consultant's recommendations. Fidos has long stood ready to engage with the city in improvements and responsible management of the park and continues to extend our volunteer hours, our tools, and our expertise towards wise management of this park for all user groups. We too want this park to be better, a better place for families, for BMXers, and for dogs and their owners. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wayne Martinson. I'm not sure I want to follow that. I work for National Audubon Society's Utah Important Bird Areas Coordinator and am a member of Great Salt Lake Audubon. But in this case, I'm representing myself, not representing National Audubon or Great Salt Lake Audubon. And also, I am a dog owner. I enjoy walking my dog around the Capitol, which is where I live, and deeply regretted when our other dog died a year and a half ago. Riparian habitat is a very limited and precious habitat across the West. It is less than 1% of the habitat in Utah. Lowland riparian habitat, which this qualifies as because it's below an elevation of 5,200 feet, is even less in percentage, about 0.32%. And yet birds, which is what I talk about most in relationship to wildlife, because that's what I'm most working on, use lowland riparian habitat to one of the greatest degrees of all. So when the Partners in Flight put together their plan about 10 years ago, they said lowland riparian habitat is the most important habitat to preserve and protect for migratory birds. Migratory birds across the world, across the United States, across Utah are in decline. This area is an area that was at one point documented with 110 different species and different bird species, was a very important bird habitat, lowland riparian habitat. The management plan attempts to protect that lowland riparian habitat. It is a valuable effort to have people appreciate what is a worldwide resource that is in decline. I think it's important that we try to do what we can to protect the habitat for the watershed, which is one of the main reasons, the lowland or the riparian protection area for the city. Those are values that I think we should all share in relationship to trying to preserve our natural values. One other reason I wanted to get involved in this particular project is the history of this area, and I have a few pamphlets about the historic nature park and its beginnings and how it was dedicated in 1986 and so forth as a nature park. I know maybe there's a dispute about that we could talk about, or maybe but I think when I work in my job to try to find habitat that's been protected or has people of landowners have said, we're going to protect that habitat. That doesn't happen that often. We go around all the time saying, where's habitat? How can we do that? And the history of this area is that people dedicated this area as a nature park in 1986. If we can restore some of that habitat, allow dogs to be part of the area, and have the riparian habitat and the areas the south of here be part of the nature that we all want to come down here for and respect, then I think that's something that we should go for, and something we should support. So I support the management plan as it was put forward. I would encourage the rest of you to consider the value of nature, the decline in nature, and also how to use areas for dogs so that we can all appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Melissa Stamp. I work with BioWest, and we have been doing some work for Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities on doing some riparian corridor assessments throughout the city. So we've been looking at Emigration Creek and Red Butte Creek, as well as City Creek and Parleys Creek over the last couple of years. The City Creek and Parleys Creek components of our study are ongoing. We're going to have some additional public involvement activities over the next couple of months and be finalizing those plans by this summer. So our study is separate but somewhat integrated with this management plan. Our focus in Parleys Creek includes all the way from Suicide Rock area through down to Hidden Hollow. So obviously this nature park section is a very critical section, but we're looking at how the whole system connects. And in addition, we're not looking at the entire park. Our focus was on the 100-foot distance from each stream bank through the corridor. And our focus of the assessments, the baseline condition assessments that we did, we had field crews out here doing various surveys, focused mostly on vegetation and stream bed, physical stream bed and stream bank conditions. We didn't do water quality studies or habitat studies specifically. We're mostly focused on the vegetation and physical stream condition components. And been asked just to touch briefly on some of our findings. We've been in touch with Sharon Hari and her consultant team through the process. We kind of accelerated some of our data collection to try to be able to provide them some of that information. But like I said, the riparian corridor management plan is going to be a separate process. But one of the things we've already heard this from some of the previous speakers, this is an incredibly unique area within the city. It's one of the only sections of stream that exits the mountains and isn't shortly thereafter culverted or diked or rock walled or channelized or interrupted multiple times by narrow, small diameter sized culverts. It's an actual continuous stretch of stream. One of the things I think is most unique here is that it's not as deeply entrenched. There's some floodplain, there's some ability, since there isn't developed infrastructure continuously on either side of the creek corridor, there's some ability for some natural stream dynamics, and that's some of the things that you see that are in excellent condition that are unique about the habitat here is there are debris jams that are allowed to stay and make natural pools and waterfall habitat features and so forth. But one of the things we certainly did find with looking at the vegetation community results is that many of the stream banks are very limited in the amount of understory vegetation. There is a lot of access along the stream banks. There's been a lot of use along the stream banks, and it hasn't been very well managed or controlled in the past. And so, again, we'll be making some separate recommendations, but they jive with what Sharon's report is promoting on some aspects, where there needs to be access control along the stream and some time to allow some of these areas to heal, to revegetate. Revegetation measures is going to be one of the main recommendations that we'll be providing. But again, that is one of the biggest concerns that I think translates into what a lot of the use of the park has impacted. And for the record, I am also a dog owner that loves to bring my dog down here, so I think our perspective and our job, however, is to assess how well is this corridor functioning and meeting riparian functions, including vegetation, habitat, filtration of sediment and nutrient and pollutants, and that is kind of a summary of where we're headed with that. Thanks.
My name's Walt Gilmore. I'm with Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation. I'm the project manager for the Parleys Trail. I just want to give you a quick update on the status of where we stand with the trail. As you know, last summer we started construction on the alignment and did quite a bit of work constructing walls, retaining walls, and drainage throughout from up above to Tanner Park. In about 2 weeks, you'll see our contractor once again on site with equipment. And if you'll bear with us, bear the dust and the noise and whatnot that goes along with construction, will be completed by July. So we're looking forward to this trail being open. We look forward to sharing this trail as a multi-use trail. It's not just for bikers, it's not just for skaters or others, but we invite all people to use it. There will be a major effort to restore and revegetate slopes which have been disturbed during construction, and I know each of you are well aware of the disturbances, and especially on this type of a trail. So if you'll watch for signs, we'll post signs for revegetation areas. We'll have a temporary irrigation in place to assist in the establishment. So that's all I have, really. A comment on the ADA. ADA is a guideline in which we used as we designed the trail. From the very top where the bridge comes across until we get down to Tanner, that guideline was followed as best we could. Now, in this terrain, you cannot completely flatten out the trail. And if we could, we'd be spending twice what we are spending now. So as a guideline, we tried to follow it. There are places on the trail where the slopes are 9 to 11%, and that exceeds the guideline, of course. So those who are using the trail will be very hardy. So any other questions? Okay.
Sean Carter.
How you guys doing? Good. All right. Hey, my name is Sean Carter. I've been asked to represent the mountain bike community, and even though I'm an urban planner and could articulate my position very well, I've asked someone else to come talk in my place, and his name is Scott Crable. Would you please come up and talk, Scott? Thank you.
Hey, Scott.
Hello, everyone. This was kind of a last minute, not close, this was a last minute thing for us. Just a quick background, I've used this area as many of you have. I've had 3 dogs over the years. I've built dirt jumps down here. I even met my wife walking my dog down here. So I understand really how important this area is for all the users involved. I think the biggest thing that we would like to say, or that we feel, is that we kind of think it's a shame that we are finding ways to find more areas rather than somehow condensing this one even smaller than it already is. I know, from experience on the bike side of things, we've built a lot of incredible skate parks where the bikes are also allowed at many of them. But I also believe that, but for a much lower cost than that, we could designate land for dog and for bike use that doesn't require, digging a giant trench and spending millions of dollars on concrete. And I guess, I said, as a dog user and somebody or dog lover, and somebody who's enjoyed this quite a bit with all 3 of my dogs over the years, and somebody who's used the dirt jumps and built some of the dirt jumps down here, we really would just like to see more discussions, especially the way the plans are moving. If we're going to have to give something here, I just got to believe that there's other land somewhere that can be dedicated so that these guys can have more than one place to jump, maybe even a place that's open year-round instead of just a few short months, and another place that has some sort of great water access and shade for all the dog lovers and those who can't get down here. I mean, that's what I'm also hearing, is some dog owners can't physically make the hill. I'd like to see, an area we could find that would be more like this, but accessible for everyone.
What's up, Salt Lake? I'm the youngest dude here, I know that probably. I'm always the scaredest to talk to, but I don't know how to put down 12 years of emotions building this place with my bare hands, night after night, day after day. I've spent millions, I'm not a millionaire. Who am I kidding, right? I've spent thousands of dollars out of my own pocket on shovels, wheelbarrows, pipes to do irrigation systems, and this is my home right here, and if you're gonna take it away, that's pretty sad.
But yeah, like she said, I'm here for the BMX bike rider. I've been doing this for 12, 13 years now, down here at Tanner Park since I'm 13, and we got the world's best bike riders in Salt Lake. I don't know if you know them: Mike Aiken, Sean Walters, Matt Behringer, Jay Eichhorst, Greg Ingersoll. You guys need to go and check that out on the internet and see all the videos that are posted of this park. This is a famous park for trails, for bike riders. I mean, pretty lost here, you know. 12 years of emotions and them trying to take away my home it's pretty hard. And it's weird to me that people think I'm destroying stuff when I've actually transplanted trees. I've brought grass seed down. I've tried to plant flowers. People don't understand like my concern for nature more than anything.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
I know a lot of you do. I know a lot of you do, and then there's people that come down here and ruin it for us, and that is the sad part. I don't know what else to say. We're going to have the best bike riders in the whole entire world come down here on Saturday. World's best, so if you guys would like to come watch them, I think either Friday or Saturday. The world's, yep. And I would like you to come and check that out. Anyway, I'm fighting for this place. That's all I got.
Thank you. There's one other stakeholder group that we didn't identify before, and someone is here to talk on behalf of Shooting the Tube.
Hello, I'm Lisa Verstig, and I've been shooting that tube for 33 years. And not once has there been any kind of injury or a drowning. Now, they say that it's bad that there's going to be garbage. That's not true either. We've always been respectful and always packed our garbage out of here, every bit of it. And as far as the danger for the people that are down in the water, that again is untrue. There's always a warning before the dam is let go. You have plenty of time to get out of the way. It's your own stupid fault if you're down in the water when it hits. All right? It's not dangerous, and no one is going to stop me from doing it.
Okay, I want to thank all the representatives for bringing their comments and responses to the plan and telling us a little bit about their use of the park. We're now going to open for the questions that you've been recording, and we'll have to do a little shuffle with the podiums because we're down to one mic. Do we have questions? Other cities are adding off-leash areas, making their cities more dog-friendly. This is going in the opposite direction. As taxpayers, we pay a lot of taxes to Salt Lake City and get very little or no dog-friendly or off-leash parks. Are we seriously thinking of leaving? We are seriously thinking of leaving Salt Lake City if we do not get more off-leash dog-friendly services. I think we'll leave that as a comment and move on. Do you want to? Okay.
My name is Rick Graham. I'm the Director of Public Services for Salt Lake City and have as one of my responsibilities the maintenance and management of the city's parks and open space. In fact, and I think it's been mentioned here by Sharon, Salt Lake City does have 9 off-leash areas. Certainly they're not all the size of this, nor do they have the dynamic character and resources of this. Salt Lake City was the first city in the county to step forward and recognize the need and the change of culture that is needed for our residents and their dogs. We continue to do that. We just recently opened a new off-leash area. It's about 6 or 7 acres large on the Jordan River, just north of the State Agriculture Building. It is grassed, it is completely fenced. It is a large area compared to other areas in the city. It's much larger than that. We invite you to look at that. We are also working with another community group in Rose Park to create another site on a natural kind of landscaped area just north of Rosewood Park, just off of I-215. We are attempting to add sites as we have citizen groups come forward and do that and step forward to take responsibility, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, hold on. Remember our ground rules, okay? No interrupting. We got to follow up from the questioner, and we're going to get an answer. Okay?
The question is, look at other progressive cities that, like San Diego and others that are adding more space. We're trying to do that, but keep in mind that we will do that as resources and opportunities become available. I understand that. I understand that.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next question. Why are all the questions in the top 10 answered in the past tense? Has a decision already been adopted instead of just proposed?
Let me review for you again, just quickly, the process that's going through for decisions. I mentioned there have been a whole variety, and I've participated in several public meetings, stakeholder group meetings of different kinds, including in this park. The step that we're at right now is that the consultant has completed her work and worked with the stakeholder group and has passed her recommendation and her recommended plan to me. I'm reviewing it. I will be passing that along to the City Council. The City Council, in whatever time frame it wishes to pursue, will consider the plan and at some point either adopt or not adopt a plan for the park. That'll be up to them to do that. My guess is it certainly will not occur in the next couple of months because we're in the middle of the budget decision making for the city, and that tends to occupy most of our time. So my guess is that the earliest that the City Council would consider this would be sometime mid to late summer, and it could be later than that. So that's the process we're in. The City Council will also hold public hearings on the plan.
Which council member is representing this area?
I think it's Soren Simonson. Is Soren here? I know he's been coming to a lot of meetings. As part of this, JT is here. JT is the chair of the City Council. Oh, there we go. Thank you. JT reminds me, this actually is not in Salt Lake City. It's just outside of the boundaries of Salt Lake City. It's part of unincorporated Salt Lake County. The city owns the ground down here. So this is the city's property to make a decision about. But that's...